Good day, my dear grade 9 learners. How's your self-learning so far? Did your parents help you in understanding your lessons? How about your siblings? Or are you just doing it alone? If that's the case, don't worry because I am here and am very willing to help you. By the way, I am Teacher Bless and I'll be your teacher for these few video lessons in Basic Trigonometry Mathematics 9. Are you ready? Let's go! I have here two moving pictures. All you need to do is to observe, or you can also follow them as a sort of exercise. Let's have the first one. Second, try to observe what are these two people doing. All right. Every day, we tend to look on things around us. Sometimes we need to look up and sometimes we need to look down. Why do we need to look up and why do we need to look down? Have you tried thinking that one? All right. We need to look up for us to see the things above us. And we need to look down for us to see the things below us. As we look up or as we look down, there are angles that are formed. And these angles are what we call angles of elevation and depression. In this video lesson, we have here our three learning objectives. First, illustrate angles of elevation and depression. Second, identify angles of elevation and depression. And lastly, listen attentively to this contextualized recorded video lecture with enthusiasm for you to understand your lesson better. Let's start with the first illustration or example. It's module day and it's your time to go to school for you to pick up your modules. Now, in your way to your classroom, you pass by in this ground. Suppose that this is you. As a person, we have our eye level. And that is if we are going to look straight. Try to consider this illustration. If you are going to look straight, there is this line that is formed. This line is your eye level, known as your horizontal line. As you walk on the ground, you observe that there's this bird that's flying over you. And there is this dog that's walking towards you. Now, what are you going to do for you to see the bird and for you to see the dog? Of course, you need to look up for you to see the bird and you need to look down for you to see the dog. Now, as you look up, there is this line that is formed. And as you look down, there is another line that is formed. These two lines are what we called lines of sight. As you look up, there is an angle that is formed. Try to consider this angle. The first one between the horizontal line and the line of sight above. This angle here. This angle is what we called angle of elevation. And another angle that is formed below your horizontal and the line of sight. This angle here. This angle is what we call angle of depression. See, even in our simple life experience, we encounter angles of elevation and depression. Let's consider another example. So suppose that you're done picking up with your modules. So it's your time to go home. Now, on your way home, you observe that you have your classmate here on the second floor, and she is waving towards you. Now, what are you going to do in order for you to see her? How about your classmate? Let's consider this simple illustration. As an individual, we have our own eye level. So for you, who is on the ground, if you are going to look straight, there is this imaginary line that is formed. And this is your eye level. And for your classmate who is on the second floor, this is her eye level. Once again, how do you call these lines? Very good. These are your horizontal lines. Now, in order for you to see your classmate, what are you going to do? How about your classmate? Of course, for you to see her, you need to look up. And for your classmate to see you, she needs to look down. So as you look up and as she looks down, there is this line that is formed. How do you call this line? This is your line of sight. Now, as you look up, there is this angle here that is formed from your horizontal to the line of sight. How do you call this angle? Angle of elevation. And as your classmate looks down, there is another angle that is formed between her horizontal line and line of sight. This angle here. And this angle is what we call angle of depression. Now, based on the two illustrations that I presented, what is then angle of elevation? How about angle of depression? And lastly, how about line of sight? Let's define them one by one. So you have here angle of elevation. From the word elevation, elevate, that means to lift up. And you have here depression. Depress means down. So when we say angle of elevation, that is the angle formed between the horizontal line and the line of sight when looking at the object above the horizontal. So the key term, above. And when we say angle of depression, that is the angle formed between the horizontal and the line of sight below the horizontal. So you have here key terms. Above for elevation, below for depression. And lastly, when we say line of sight, that is an imaginary line that your eye follows when looking at something or an object. So, before we end this video lesson, let's have first this try this activity. I have here this illustration. Now, all you need to do is to identify which segment represents your line of sight and the angles that represent your angle of elevation and the angle of depression. I know you're familiar with this picture because this was taken from your gulayan ng paaralan. I want you to analyze and identify what we're looking for. I'll be giving you seconds. All right. I hope you have now your answer in your respective study table. As you can see here in our illustration, we have this tree, and then we have this wooden stick that is leaning against the tree. And then we have here this two horizontal lines. The first one is the upper, the second one is on the ground. Now let's identify what is our angle of elevation. All right, this one or the upper angle? That would be this angle. So this is our angle of elevation. How about angle of depression? That is your, okay, the upper angle, this angle here. Now, how about the segment that represents your line of sight? Okay, that would be your wooden stick that is leaning against the tree. Okay, so that's it for angles of elevation and depression. I hope you've learned from this video. Feel free to play, replay, or pause for you to understand your lesson better and for you to answer your modules correctly. See you on our next video where we are going to solve problems involving angles of elevation and depression. Goodbye and have a great day.